yeah, on our way to the marina now to see Ollie from Sussex Wildlife Trust, and just happened to bump into Davy Jones. Just about talking about Davy Jones's locker. Poetry in motion. Hello, sir. How are
Hello.
you?
I'm good.
So apparently you were something to do with this constituency.
Yes, for my sins, I'm standing for the Green Party as a parliamentary candidate in next year's general election, May 2015, in this constituency, which is the Palace Pier all the way to Peacehaven and various places inland from there.
Okay.
And it's known as Brighton Kempton.
Brighton Camptown.
When I moved here, I mean, one of the things I always loved about this area is, and I think it's what attracts people to Brighton in general, Brighton and Hove in general, is it's not just the sea, although I love the sea.
Sure.
It's also the downs behind it, and the fact you've got both. And it's the beautiful green areas, it's the beautiful sea, and it's the combination of the two that you're surrounded by, and you can get to both of them so easily. And so I grew up with that, and so I'm very passionate about defending that and keeping it.
Yeah, aren't we all?
Yeah, well,
You know,
well, some
we
people
should
aren't
be.
so passionate.
Yeah, sure.
Some people like to build all over the green space.
Sure.
I'm not so keen, but yeah, I think it's really important. So I've always been environmentally inclined, although I guess I wasn't really seriously sort of green and environmentally conscious until about, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Okay, that's when you should turn from just a passing kind of
Yeah.
observation to actually let's get engaged.
Yeah.
So it's amazing just how much beauty there is under the sea, and I think that people have historically have got away with quite a lot of stuff going on underneath the sea because out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously now they're trying to join up the dots on that to get a lot more information, and I like the idea of that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if any studies have been done recently, over the last few years about the impact of tourism on the sea here, because I think, as you say, most people tend to see the sea as being just a dumping area, really. It's
Sure.
something that's just there, and you go in and swim in it, maybe, but that's about
Sure.
it. I don't realise the significance it has for everything. To do
That there's
with
a
our
whole
lives, isn't it?
ecosystem there,
Yeah.
lots of various living
And the
things.
fact is 2/3 of the planet is covered by it,
Right.
and all
Yeah.
the rest of it. So, I don't know though whether or not the tourism has actually affected it adversely. I guess it might have done with the sea traffic and the tankers going backwards and forwards.
Well,
and all
it's
the rest of it.
supposed to be one of the busiest international shipping lanes
Yeah,
in the
exactly,
world.
yeah.
You know,
And I'm sure it must have.
but we've just got the biosphere sort of designation and this marine conservation zone because of the chalk, which is quite a rare thing, is a real rarity.
It's brilliant. I think it's the first
And
one,
right at
isn't
the
it?
doorstep.
First one in Europe, I think.
40 years.
Yeah.
First one in 40 years.
Yeah, and it's really brilliant that we managed to achieve it here in Brighton Hove.
Very forward-thinking place,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm here. That's why I love it.
Yeah.
You know,
me too.
because the conversations you have are forward-thinking.
Yeah.
Majority of them are positive and constructive and creative, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, we want to do lots of it on the show.
Yeah.
You know.
I lived in London for a long time, but in between being down here, but I moved back 12 years ago, and it feels like home. And it feels like London by the sea. I know that's a cliche, but it really
No,
is.
a lot of people say it's London.
All the stuff about London that you love, the music, the verb, the vibe of the place. You get that too in Brighton. So
Sure.
That's all.
And I was chatting to someone who has worked a chugger,
Yeah.
a charity mugger
Yeah.
on the street the other day down by the Churchill Square, and she goes, "We was working in London, but no one talks to you. You come down here and people are happy to chat."
Yeah.
And I said, well, people live by the sea generally are a bit more placid, I
Yeah.
find, because you can't stare to infinity and see the horizon,
Ah.
because there is that sense of space.
Yeah.
You're not feeling so claustrophobic.
Yeah, London is a bit
Yeah.
tense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So there's a few other campaigns going on locally. Just over here, there's something going on about, because obviously we're a salt dean,
Yes.
and apparently some of the deans need saving.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. I mean, what's happened is that there's been a lot of applications by developers to build on the greenfield sites, particularly around places like Ovingdean, Woodingdean, and Rottingdean, but in other parts of the city as well. And there's one in particular area called Meadow Vale in Ovingdean where there's an application to put in, they've just put in the actual formal planning application, to build a load of houses on a field which traditionally, it's literally right next to the South Downs National Park, adjoins it. It often floods.
Building on the floodplain.
Yeah.
It's like no one's noticed the news from Somerset from like the earlier in the year.
Yes, you think they might have done. And if you know that area, and people who live in Ovingdean and Woodingdean know it very well, severe traffic problems already in that area, adding to that would be a real problem. Anyway, there's a massive campaign against it. I mean, I don't think people of Ovingdean will mind me saying, but it's not the sort of place where you normally expect a big political campaign to be going on.
Sure.
It's a fairly quiet sort of place.
Bit of sleepy
And
suburbia.
I went to a meeting there of 500 people, which is a really, really big meeting, and I spoke against this
So
development.
that's a bit of community passion there.
Yeah, and the whole community, 95% of the community is up in arms about this development and trying to stop it. The problem is, without getting too technical and too boring,
Something to do with a city plan or something?
well, yeah, the council, every council has to draw up a city plan or a neighbourhood plan.
Yeah.
And the council drew one up here, and the government's national inspector rejected it.
Right.
Said there weren't enough houses.
Right,
Problem
because
is-
there's a playoff or something. Just from my take on it is, if you don't have a plan, the government says it's free for all,
That's right.
and it could just run riot.
Exactly.
But then plans are being put together, and then they're knocking them back anyway.
Yep.
And then the government are coming back and
Yeah.
giving unrealistic.
Yeah, less than 1 in
limits.
5 areas of the country have got plans accepted. So the other
Right.
4/5 of the country, developers can go in and basically do what they like,
Carte blanche.
which is a real worry. And
Is that on national parks as well?
no. I mean,
Right.
it's excludes national parks. But the thing about Brighton and Hove is that, I mean, I support more housing. Brighton and Hove. Obviously, we need more
People
housing.
need so much
But we can't have the same sort of housing targets that are given to other areas of the country for the reasons I gave earlier. We're between the sea
Yeah.
and the Downs and a
Right.
national park.
Sandwiched.
So where do you put these extra houses?
Right.
Other places, to be honest, it's a lot easier. Brighton and Hove, the targets they've set us are ridiculously
Right.
high. So I think this Ovingdean campaign, which has become known as Save Our Deans,
Yep.
is probably the first of many such campaigns.
Sure.
And I do think that, if you build over all the links between the little villages, Ovingdean, Woodingdean, Rottingdean, all the rest of it,
And destroy all the wildlife corridors.
yeah, exactly. You dry all
Yeah.
those wildlife, but also it just becomes a big sprawl, and
Yeah.
it changes the whole character of the area. Some people I know say that, this is just NIMBYism, local people saying, rich people.
That's the quick flip defence, though.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
saying, rich people who've got a really nice place and they don't want other people, ruining their area. And maybe there is a bit of that, but to be honest, particularly in the Ovingdean one, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of the people there. They're conscious of the need for housing, but they just feel that's the wrong place. And so it's a very big campaign about it, and I'm involved in that,
Sure.
and other people are as well. And I think, the chances are we could even win that campaign against the government.
I can remember there was the Squatters Network of Brighton and
Yeah.
Hove actually. Snob, aha. They've gone through, and some of them are notorious for going in places and doing them up to
Yes.
usual standards and all
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And then there's been initiatives by Mr. Weatherly or whatever who turned around and no, can't do it, and then they
Criminalising it, yeah.
criminalise it, and next thing you know, you've got all these steel railings up, and it's looking like some kind of
Yeah, it looks
industrial
horrible.
fortification in commercial and residential areas, which is worse.
Yeah, much worse, yeah.
And then there's people filling the hostels who won't go to the hostels, and there's empty houses.
Yeah. But
And it doesn't make
the real
sense.
problem is we've sold off so many council houses because of the
Sure.
stupid right to buy policy that
Sure,
Thatcher
back from the
introduced.
80s. Yeah.
I mean, I was in Moulskin this morning, and the most of the big council houses were in Moulskin and Whitehall, mainly
Sure.
Moulskin when they were built, and nearly all of those were the ones that were sold off.
Sure, and that was the Tory plan to
Yeah.
get the lower classes into property speculation.
But that didn't happen. What happened
Yeah.
is most of them bought it, took the money, flogged the house then to other people, and a lot of
Yeah.
these large houses are now owned by big landlords who own 50, 60,
The
70 old
houses,
council
yeah.
houses.
Right.
So it hasn't helped the situation.
No.
And now they charge an absolute fortune. If you know young people
Yeah.
trying to find a place now in
Yeah,
Brighton,
I've been through it.
they pay an absolute arm and a leg.
And a really
for properties.
inflated rentier class.
Yeah.
And I think in Brighton, is it 3/4 of the people living in Brighton struggle to pay their rent.
Yeah. Instead of housing being seen as
Yeah.
something which you need as a human
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
we all,
As a kind of public
deserve
service,
a decent home,
Yeah.
wherever, instead of that, it's seen as something that you buy, and it's seen as an investment vehicle.
Yeah.
We've
Commodification.
marketised housing
Yeah.
in a way that, as we've marketised everything else under
Yeah.
this previous government, and that's why I think we have the problems we have. So I think it's a wrong solution to build over all the green spaces.
Yeah.
We need
Of
to
course.
tackle the marketisation of the housing thing and bring it back
Yeah.
into social housing and all the rest of it to tackle those issues. That's my take.
So it's not just like the RSPB say, give nature a home, but there's like give people a home.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's some.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to work in the housing department at Hackney Council many years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
so and we used to do things like a housing needs survey every year. So you'd have to draw up a really detailed plan of what were the needs. And it used to be heartbreaking when you'd read the needs. You know, you'd read how bad some of the accommodation was and the needs that people had. People deserve a home.
Yeah, if you've got,
They deserve it, and it's not
just
beyond us.
And it's just, no, it's not beyond us at all. It's just being a bit more humanitarian, a
Yeah.
bit more humanist.
Exactly, we're a
You know.
modern, affluent country, and we can't give people a home. They're living in cardboard boxes on the streets of Brighton.
Yeah.
It's appalling.
Yeah. I saw a thing the other day, you know, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Abraham Maslow.
Yes.
Me and Joel the cameraman had just shared one where you've got your kind of like your survival needs, and then you've got your kind of actualisation needs, and then on the bottom, just below it is Wi-Fi. And below that is battery. Mr. David Jones.
Thank you.
Little chat about David Jones's locker and Bang the Worlds to Rights.
Yes.
And
I'll come back if I may. Sometime.
I would love to come back and keep in touch, be a friend of the show,
I will.
because we'd like to do a bit more for you, sir.